Oh my God. It ain't no slouch, we'll put it that way. Boom, you're good to go. Hi everyone, I'm Kenan from Cars and Bids, and today we're in Los Angeles at WESTSIDE Collector Car Storage, Matt Ferry's place, to talk about the Swiss Army knife of Porsche 911s. This is the 991 generation 911 Turbo S Cabriolet, and it can do, well, basically everything. In today's video, we're going to be discussing its facts and figures. First, we'll talk about where the turbo fits into Porsche's past, then we'll get nerdy and talk about some of the technical details of this car, and then we'll take it for a drive. Before I get going though, big surprise, this 911 Turbo S Cabriolet is currently for sale, being auctioned live on Cars and Bids. This is a 2019 model, and it comes with some very desirable factory equipment, including carbon fiber interior trim, Burmester sound system, and the factory aero kit. It also has only about 4,600 miles on it, making it, well, basically brand new. And if you've been in the market for one of these, after you finish watching this video, click the link in the description below. We can have the live auction of this one. We can bid on it and buy it only on Cars and Bids. We begin the story of the 911 Turbo by talking about why it exists at all. Porsche has always been focused on racing since their inception, and they're always looking for ways to compete in motorsport. In the 1970s, Porsche realized that they wanted to use turbocharged power in their race cars, and in order to do so, they had to homologate it using their road cars. And so in 1975, Porsche set out to incorporate turbocharged technology into its famed sports car, the 911, and it gave us the Turbo Carrera in 1976. Originally, Porsche only had to produce a certain number of these cars in order to get the technology homologated for racing, but the model proved to be so popular that Porsche decided to keep it around in perpetuity, and that gave us the 930 Turbo. In addition to turbocharged power, Porsche would augment other parts of the car so that, well, it could keep up with its newfound power. They would give it better suspension, a stronger gearbox, a different body kit, and other special touches to make sure that, well, it could handle the new performance that it had under the hood. However, despite these upgrades, the car earned a reputation as being kind of difficult to handle. Because of how the turbocharged power would come on and the engine's placement behind the rear axle, it meant that if you weren't used to driving a 911 or you weren't expecting the power to come on, well, it could spin you very quickly, and thus it developed the name Widowmaker. However, the car also developed a reputation among enthusiasts as being a true performance car. It offered really incredible power, and if you knew how to drive it, it was an incredibly competent sports car. Porsche would offer several different versions of the 911 Turbo, including a couple of different body styles, but they would offer special models as well, most notably the slant nose, which had a redesigned front end that was more aerodynamic and more aggressive and performance-focused in its look. Then in 1989, Porsche introduced a very limited run model from their Special Wishes program called simply the Turbo S. It had an upgraded suspension system, more power, more cooling, and other special touches to differentiate it from the standard turbo. They only built 21 examples of this car, so you can't really call it a standard production model, but Porsche realized that there was demand for an even more powerful, even more focused version of the turbo. And so from the 964 all the way up to the current day, there's always been an S ultra performance focused version of the 911 Turbo. And they share some interesting characteristics between the generations. Since the 993 Turbo S, one of the easiest ways to distinguish a Turbo S compared to a standard turbo would be its brakes. The calipers on the Turbo S are always painted yellow, but eventually that became a signature of Porsche's PCCBs, or the Porsche Carbon Ceramic Braking System. So you can get PCCBs on a normal 911 Turbo, but on all Turbo S's, well, you're going to see these yellow calipers. I also want to discuss carbon ceramic brakes a little bit more, as they're interesting, and, well, having them on a street car in some ways is a little bit of overkill. The main benefit of carbon ceramic brakes is their ability to dissipate heat. The whole point of a braking system, obviously, is to bring a car to a stop, an object in motion to a stop, and the byproduct of doing this is heat because of the friction that's created between the pads and the rotor. When you apply braking to a high-performance driving situation, though, as you would on a racetrack, well, there's a lot of heat that's generated by the brakes, naturally. You're going even faster than you would normally on the road, and so all of those components get very hot. Steel brakes can't get rid of heat as well as carbon ceramics do, simply due to their thermodynamic properties. And so having these brakes on a car that's going to see track time and experience a lot of high-performance braking is a huge benefit. One of the benefits for the road would be serviceability. These brakes tend to last a lot longer than their steel counterparts, and so you don't have to change them as often. However, when you do change them, they are very expensive, but it will get you through multiple brake changes as opposed to what you would have to go through maintaining a steel brake setup. Another design element that's derived from the Turbo S would be these ducts that are located on the rear 3/4 panel of the car. Now, all 911 turbos now have these. However, this ducting started originally with the 964 Turbo S. That car itself took inspiration from the Porsche 959, adding an extra duct to get more cooling into the engine. In this case, these are the intakes for the engine on this car, and as I mentioned, you find them on all turbo versions. Really, it started to become more popular with the 996 and then the 997 after that. But regardless, this ducting started originally with the Turbo S, and so of course you see it here on this one. And now I want to talk about the 991 generation Turbo S specifically. As I was preparing for this video, I did lots of research on this car, but to be honest with you, I couldn't find a whole lot of technical information about it. In Porsche's own sales brochure, they focused more on the equipment that you could get on this car and, well, what kind of colors and stitching you could get. They really didn't focus that much on the technical details of this car, and I think that speaks to the kind of client they know that buys this car. The really nerdy engineering focused guys, they all buy the GT3. But for people who just want a fast, ultra performance version of the 911, well, they are the ones who end up with a Turbo S. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but I wanted to make sure I noted that before we get into some of the technical details of this car. Another feature that's standard in the Turbo S would be PDCC, or Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control. These are active sway bars located in the car that, using pitch and yaw sensors, determine when the car is going to experience body roll. They adjust the sway bars accordingly to dial that out, resulting in even more neutral handling for the Turbo S. Moving to the back of the 991 Turbo S Cabriolet, we have to talk about this car's engine, and, well, frankly, there's not much to see back here. When you open this engine compartment, there's a place to add oil, a place to add coolant, and some fans, but there's really nothing to see, and that's because all of the service work to this car is done from underneath. But I think it speaks to who Porsche was targeting with this car. They knew the customers of this car weren't going to be rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty tinkering around. They wanted a nice car that was really fast, and, well, this engine delivers. Housed back here is a 3.8 liter twin turbocharged flat six that makes 580 horsepower and 553 foot-pounds of torque. And it means that the coupe version of this car can get from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.7 seconds. And the Cabriolet is not far behind it at a little bit closer to 3. Pretty impressive performance for a car that weighs over 3,700 pounds. But the engine isn't the only reason why this car is so fast. It's also equipped with Porsche's fabulous PDK dual clutch transmission. I haven't really discussed dual clutches all that much, but I want to take a moment to talk about how they work. Basically, as the name suggests, there are two clutches instead of a normal car that has a single clutch, and these clutches operate independently. One clutch controls the odd numbered gears and one clutch controls the even numbered gears. The benefit to this is that while you're accelerating, there's no interruption between shifting gears. It simply jumps back and forth between the clutches, so gears are always engaged and the changes are really fast. This transmission is also incredibly robust, as this car can be launched over and over and over again without any failures. Porsche has really mastered this technology. Yes, there's no manual transmission available for the Turbo or Turbo S, but the PDK transmission in this car is excellent, and of course it means that this car is insanely fast. Since this is the convertible version of the Turbo S, I wanted to discuss some convertible specific things, most notably this car's roof. The frame for this car's roof is made out of magnesium, meaning that it's very light and also very strong. Porsche was also very concerned with making sure that with the roof up, the drag coefficient of this car was not impacted, and it's quite good at 0.32, meaning that this car cuts through the air very nicely and is very slippery. The roof also goes up and down in 13 seconds, and it can be operated at up to 30 miles an hour, which is great because when you're driving this car, you want the ease of being able to put your top up and down whenever you like. The last thing I want to talk about with the 991 Turbo S would be its steering. Specifically not about the front wheels, but instead about the rear wheels, as this car has rear wheel steering. At speeds up to 30 miles an hour, the rear wheels will articulate in the opposite direction to the front wheels, giving the car the feeling of having a much smaller wheelbase. At speeds above 50 miles an hour, the rear wheels will articulate in conjunction with the front wheels, giving the car the feeling of a much longer wheelbase and making lane changes at high speed much easier. Rear wheel steering systems are nothing new, but in the application of a Turbo S, it makes this car even more usable and even more fun to drive. Okay, it's time to drive the 991 generation Turbo S, and the first thing I want to do is demonstrate the roof procedure, just because it's so fast. You just hold a button here on the center console and boom, tops down, you're good to go. Very easy, and again, that's kind of what you expect with this car. The whole point of this car is it's supposed to be very usable. That's the whole focus of this car. Fast and very usable. So let's go use some of that performance. Now, I've never driven a 991 Turbo S before, but I've wanted to for a long time. One of my really close friends in San Diego, Sam, and I have often talked about what's the perfect blend of like usability and performance. And this car comes up in our conversations a lot. These cars are so nice and well made. They just have so much power and the performance is so insane. And so we talk about this car a lot, so I'm curious to get to experience it today. So a couple of things to note with this one is, one, that it has the Aero Kit package, which adds some flair to this car and some functionality too, and then it gives it more downforce and things like that. It also has a lot of great factory equipment in it, as I mentioned before, and not just because like we're selling this car, I'm mentioning that, but that's just what you expect with this car. And on that note, as I was doing a lot of research for this car, that's what everything talks about, is the equipment that's available on this car. Finding like actual engineering facts about this car was significantly harder than I was expecting it to be. But I think, again, that's just like the target audience for this car is a little bit different in that regard. The people who buy this car want a really fast, really nice, very comfortable car that you can do exactly what I'm doing now. Driving around just easily, you know, just enjoying the driving and not really stressing over everything. And the Turbo S is really great at that. You see a relatively high number of Turbo S's, and I suspect that's because when you're spending the kind of money that people were to get this car new, it really didn't matter to you that you're like, well, I might as well get the S then. I might as well get the most powerful version of this car. Why not? Oof, but then you get on the throttle and wow, the performance. Yeah, this car might be comfortable and cushy and you can just kind of roll around town with the top down and enjoy yourself, but it ain't no slouch, we'll put it that way. That's crazy. Oh my God. That was a big number really quickly. Wow. Wow. That's really something. Good heavens. So the performance is shocking. Now, I recently drove a Ferrari F8. To me, anyway, that was almost too much performance for the road. This car, however, it's a different approach. Yeah, the engine is insane. I mean, we're talking, you know, Veyron levels of acceleration is what this car is capable of doing. But you can just drive it pretty normally too. But the second you want to go quickly, oh my God. Wow. Yeah, you have all the performance you could ever want on tap. And there's a lot of performance. So yes, to my earlier point, I think the reason why there's not a lot of information readily available about the engineering of this car is because it's just so experiential. Like once you feel the performance of the Turbo S, like that's what people really buy in here. They wanted the most powerful, crazy car, and short of the GT2 RS, this is that. And as you would expect with a Porsche, pretty much everything else in here is perfectly judged. The brakes are tremendous, great pedal feel, and then obviously you know they have the stopping capabilities for a car that can go as fast as this one can. And the transmission too, like PDK is just so good. Of course, I bemoan not having a third pedal in any Porsche, but you know, for this car, like I get why it doesn't have it. This car is something you would drive every day, and here, like in Los Angeles, driving this every day, I get it. I get not wanting to shift a manual transmission in a car of this performance level. You just want to point it and go, and that's what the Turbo and Turbo S are about. But that said, like even so, just like tossing around, like it still feels like a 911. The beauty of the Turbo S is that, yeah, you get all the huge performance figures, but you still have, you know, at this car's heart, a sports car. And so you can just enjoy that aspect of it too. That it just can do everything. You know, because of the all-wheel drive too, you can use it in conditions that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be able to with a rear-wheel drive dedicated sports car. The reliability is something to think about too. These cars are very, very reliable. There are no drawbacks to this car that I can think of. They are expensive. You know, they deserve to be. It's a lot of performance, and it's so nice. Everything in this car is just so nice. I mean, just come on. That's wild. If you're looking for a sports car that can be something you use very frequently, you could take your significant other, drive up the coast in, enjoy top-down motoring, but also have an insane amount of performance on tap and just wonderful build quality. Truly not sacrifice anything. The Turbo S is that car. And that is the Porsche 991 generation Turbo S Cabriolet. This car can do basically everything. It's got supercar levels of performance, everyday usability and practicality, the build quality you would expect from a Porsche, and, well, it drives like a 911. And if you've been in the market for one of these, you can buy this one on Cars and Bids. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Goodbye.